Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I greet you all in a universal greeting of peace with blessings coming to you from South Africa. I'm hoping you can hear me and you are all listening and wanting to learn more. But before I go any further, wherever you are in the world, I greet you, of course, in the universal greeting of peace with blessings. And I'm hoping that everyone is good and is well and is going to take away from today something that is going to benefit you. I'm going to apologize in advance for the voice. It's a bit of a flu today, so flu doesn't stop us, okay? We still need to be educated, we still need to learn from each other, and that's why we keep going. Before I continue, I want to say thank you, a huge thank you to my beautiful sister Maha for this and organizing this, and of course to our visionary, Sir Piyush Pandits. Without him, we wouldn't have IIU, and without IIU, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing across the world. And it's really, really my honor to be here today, to be talking to you about something that I'm very passionate about. And of course, to serve humanity at large across the globe. Being who I am as a global educationist and something else that I do as a transformational wellness advocate throughout the world, I'm very passionate about how to educate people, but not just about classroom-based academia. I'm talking about educating people for themselves, to help them develop who they can be to the best of their potentials and to help them grow. And education is the key. And this is why us at IIU do this with passion. And we do this with such vigor because we really wish to empower everyone through education across the globe. So I thank you, Sir Piyush Pandit, for this. I am also the founder of the MIA International Institute of Programs, which is running across the world, where we motivate, inspire, and advance people to grow through education. And of course, I am the president of Successful One Academy and a vice president of Yes You Can International UK here in South Africa. As an educationist, like I said, today's topic for me, very, very important. And today we are talking about mindset of education for education with emotional intelligence. If you have to look at that topic alone, we're talking about mindset, we're talking about education, and we're talking about emotional intelligence. All of those are concepts that are absolutely key for you to be able to grow yourself as an individual, but also for you to learn, to grow yourself so that you know how to actually communicate and become better in terms of the role you play within a structure, whether it's your family, whether it's your work, whether it is in your community, whatever it may be. The key to everything that we are doing is we are networking, we are building relations. And in order for us to build proper relations that are healthy and beneficial, we need to always learn to understand each other. And before we understand each other, I always say to everyone, we have to learn to understand ourselves. And the key to understanding yourself is to educate yourself. Educate yourself about you. Educate yourself about the people around you. Educate yourself about what's happening around you. Educate yourself about you within first, before you try to educate from outside of you. So education for me is key. But today we're talking about education on a level of emotionally being intelligent. When we talk about emotional intelligence, it's something very simple. Two huge words, many people talk about it. But if you really want to break it down, all it is referring to how intelligent are you about your emotions. Are you even intelligent about your emotions? Do you know what the triggers are for you for your emotions? Whether you're a student, whether you're the teacher, whether you're a parent, whether you're just somebody who's doing work, whether you're the leader in your community or your country, being emotionally intelligent makes you a better equipped individual in the role you play so that you're able to then characterize whatever duties and responsibilities need to be dealt with efficiently, with productivity that is very, very good. So today we're talking about just that. Education with emotional intelligence. I'm going to break it down a little bit. And if you have a pen and paper, write down. If you don't, please watch the recording or watch it live again and take down notes because it is important for you to grow you, to develop you, to empower you. That's how you become better for you first. Emotional intelligence is a very critical component of education. And I wish we could actually start to push in emotional intelligence as a part of a curriculum. I know our teachers are inundated with curriculum that needs to be completed before examinations, etc. But when you have an emotionally intelligent teacher and you have students who are also emotionally intelligent about themselves, it makes for a better environment for us to be able to learning in and teaching. When we're talking about emotional intelligence being that component of education, it refers to our ability to actually understand. But beyond understanding, it also helps us to influence the emotions in other people. So many students we know struggle in a classroom with behavior issues. Most of the time, those behavior issues are actually tied to a lack of self-expression or knowing how to express themselves, or they have a lack of understanding how to have conflict resolution skills. So remember, for example, some mornings you as a student will be going to school either with your parent or your guardian or in the car, and then you have a squabble with your parent and you don't listen. So you get off the car, but in a very bad kind of a mood. So you're angry or you're frustrated. And then you're in school, and in school, you actually start to write a test. And then for some reason, even though you remembered your work when you studied the night before, now when you're writing the test, you're all muddled up. Do you know why that's the case? It's because your emotional intelligence has suddenly got the better of you in terms of the emotion you felt when you got off the vehicle to get into school. All of this is about you as a student, you as a person. And when we talk emotional intelligence, it addresses two aspects of your psyche. The first, of course, is about your ability to understand and manage your emotions. And the second one is how you actually understand and, of course, influence emotions in other people. It's very important that we understand this. We get this because emotional intelligence is just about this. It is about you versus others. So you first have to have this ability to learn, to understand yourself, understand your emotions, learn how to manage your emotions, and in turn, then also have this ability to understand and influence and manage how to actually react to emotions of other people. Because there's a very strong correlation between students' emotional intelligence in a classroom behavior and how they actually behave as people. We notice that students with low emotional intelligence may struggle to focus, and they have relationships with their peers or their children around them, which can sometimes show aggression. And some teachers find that difficult to deal with. So students with lower emotional intelligence, they tend to struggle to communicate the feelings that they're experiencing, especially with those that are their peers. This then becomes their problem. This then becomes the result of, I don't know how to communicate my feelings. I don't know how to deal with this kind of a friendship. I don't know how to negotiate with my classmate. It even then impacts how they have relationships with adults around them at home, whether it's their family, whether it's people in their community. And that form of aggression that a student can possess can also become the common issue that makes them have the lack of a skill where they don't even know how to manage what they're feeling. They don't know how to manage the emotion appropriately. And these behavior problems then surface in preschool. They move into elementary school, and of course, sometimes can become more serious in a child's life as the child grows on into adulthood. But remember, emotional intelligence and academic achievement go hand in hand. If you're a student listening to me, if you're a teacher listening to me, then you must know this. Your emotional intelligence and your academic achievements go together. A student who develops a very high emotional intelligence may actually have better coping skills to deal with challenges that any form of education can present them. You know, for example, a student with a higher emotional intelligence may be able to cope better when they have stress issues, when there's a management of stress that's required, whether it's an exam, whether it's a class test, whether it's your term paper. And we know from research that's been done that students with a higher emotional intelligence can persist through whatever stresses they're going through, whether it's high school, whether it's college, but they're less likely to become the dropout in school because those become people that don't know how to deal with their emotional intelligence, how to manage themselves. Many students we know, like I said, struggle in a classroom, but it's because there's not much empathy. They don't understand others, they don't understand themselves. They don't have the source of self-expression. They don't have the source of conflict resolution. How do I get through what I'm feeling if it's a conflicting emotion? This emotional intelligence I'm talking about is just your ability to acknowledge, it's your ability to understand, and it's your ability to control emotions. I need to be in control and acknowledge and understand my emotions. I have to understand and acknowledge and interact with the emotions other people also show off to me. And this is a skill that we have to have at all stages of life, which fosters a success in both our personal lives and in professional lives as well. Because when we have teaching of emotional intelligence in a school, then we'll see, for example, that in the public sphere, there'll be a more of an awareness between people of how to engage properly that will create a quality of life that's beneficial for everyone. We know that's what we're looking for. We know we wish to be heard. We know we wish to be understood. And that is key. So emotional intelligence is important. Why? Because it improves your relationship with yourself, as well as it improves your relationship with other people. If a teacher, for example, can look at their own emotional intelligence when they're having a hard day at school or in the classroom, then they're going to be able to resist that urge to rather attack a child that's, maybe naughty in a class, because they become more in tune with who they are, what's their triggers, etc. But if you're not aware of these things, and if you're not in control of your emotion, then you're going to lash out at everything that happens that's going to frustrate you. And likewise, if a student in a classroom also is able to be in touch with the emotional side, they're intelligent about their emotions, then they will be able to observe if another child in their classroom, for example, is irritable. They know, okay, this child is irritable. I am not going to go and start to play around with the child to make them get angry. I'm not going to make somebody become temperamental with me because I can see that this is how they're going through. So it doesn't just help you. It helps you to understand other people as well. And this kind of emotional intelligence can be taught to children because children need to learn. How can they express themselves appropriately? How can they learn these skills about conflict resolution? How do they even understand that there is a conflict going on within them about their emotions so they can find a resolution that works for them? How do they learn empathy? Do they learn it themselves or do they learn it by observing us? These are core aspects of emotional intelligence, and it can be taught in classroom contexts. It can be taught via games. It can be taught in different forms of exercises. And it's really important for us to understand this because we have got to learn that this is the key. Now, there are many benefits of emotional intelligence, especially for our students, like I was saying earlier, because emotional intelligence offers our students so much of a benefit that it can influence a learner's behavior towards, like I said, themselves, between them and their peers, between them and their families, between them and their communities, and between their future growth in the world, in the working world. If they become so in tune with themselves that they taught about all of these things, that they can actually demonstrate less aggression, more understanding, more empathy, because it is important for students to learn these different traits about themselves. They have to take care of themselves and of other people. Through strengthening skills of emotional intelligence, learners are going to be able to also assess themselves even better and then be able to assess the needs of other people to be able to help them. Does that not mean that we're creating more humanitarians? Does that not mean that we are creating more children, leaders, who are able to learn to get in tune with themselves, to learn to get in tune with others, to help other people, to know when to actually grow other people and make them become better? How can we make them better? How can we learn these understanding traits? Throughout human life, this is something that we are looking for. We're looking for how to develop ourselves. We're looking about personal mental health and social life that needs to be of such a high quality that it betters our workplace, it betters our academic work, it betters our day-to-day interactions with each other, with society at large. And this can be so fulfilling if only we can just reach out first within ourselves and, of course, then to others to learn to understand this one concept of emotional intelligence, because it can be said to actually cover important points of you. And I'm going to cover just 5 of them for today. The The 5 points of emotional intelligence that I think are very crucial, and I try and teach this across the board to everybody, no matter what your age or your profession. These 5 points are key structural points that will help you to understand you better before anything else. And the first of them is self-awareness. You cannot try to make changes about anything unless you're aware that something needs to be changed. If you're not aware of the change that's necessary, then you are not going to know what needs to be changed and how to do it. So self-awareness is key. Your second concept is emotional control. Your third concept is your self-motivation. Your fourth concept is empathy. And then we're talking about relationship skills. Of course, we know that it's important for good communication with others. And of course, that is where the gateway is to better learning, to having better friends, better friendships, better relationships, and of course, having academic success and employment. But skills such as every one of these can only be formed to the utmost if you really develop yourself to become a better person with knowing that I am more aware, I'm actually in control, I have empathy, and I have relationship skills, so I know what's what. But a key factor that I want to pause to make sure everybody understands is as much as we want to understand ourselves and a people, a very important concept is what we call active listening. What is this? The skill of being an active listener is where you are able to create a genuine two-way communication. It's about not just paying attention to what you wish to get out of what someone is saying, but also to be heard properly so your message is clear enough, but also to understand the emotion behind the tone of what somebody is saying back to you. Why? Because your reaction is what is important to the person who's relaying a message to you. Actively listening to every single concept and word, understanding the emotion behind what is being said to you. That is active listening, and it involves genuinely following a dialogue and responding to others using your own body language, and then being able to demonstrate that you have understood by either summarizing back the key messages, or you could just listen and do what was asked for you in the message that was given to you. But in the classroom, for example, active listening becomes key because your teacher is teaching you constantly. You cannot only listen to a certain portion of what the teacher is saying because you may just miss out on the most important portion, which could be the end, right? The skill of active listening then is very important because it becomes a very key factor in how you can create this genuine way of two-way communication. It's far more than just paying attention. It's actually listening to get the message of what is being said to you, because then only will you be able to know, how am I supposed to react with this intelligently? Is this something that is affecting any of my emotion? How is it triggering me? These are concepts. But you have to be so trained within yourself emotionally to understand what this is doing to you from an emotional intelligence perspective. Now, when we're talking about this two-way communication skill, we're talking about interpersonal skills. And this too is enhanced by helping our students to create their emotion vocabulary. And I say this very often in the classes I'm in, and I teach and I try and get this to other teachers as well. When you encourage your students to actually understand the difference between, for example, the word sad, or the word disappointed, or the word upset. These are 3 words: sad, disappointed, and upset. But these are 3 distinct different words related to 3 distinct different emotions. Do we know what those differences are? Do we actually let the children understand that these are different emotions attached to these different words? So, in short, every emotion word that you are learning is actually a new tool for your future emotional intelligence. So be wary of this. And a simple way to introduce this kind of concept of each word to your students is to play this alphabet game in a class, for example. As a class, you can see how many different emotions you can come up with. I know on WhatsApps and on social media now we have the emoticons that happen, but let's try and put them into words in a classroom. And let's ask our children, for every letter of the alphabet, come up with an emotional word. What is the word that responds to an emotion? And let them get in touch with the meaning of what's behind these words, not just what is the face value of an emoticon for an emotion. And if you're looking for inspiration, then you can obviously look at different forms of things that are on the net. There's always lessons there to help you. But it is key for us to teach our children the language behind an emotion. What exactly do these words mean? They are not one and the same. And the more our children are able to understand this, the more then it links to how they can develop an awareness about their own emotions. And remember, I said one of the key concepts earlier is this development of your self-awareness. That is crucial. That is absolutely key when you want to get through and become emotionally intelligent. When you have low self-awareness, then you are at risk of not realizing how you are coming across to other people. If I am not aware of myself, if I have very low self-awareness about me right now, then I'm not going to actually know how I'm coming across to you. And of course, then I will have probably an overinflated self-image about myself, about what my behavior is, what my social interaction is. However, if we actually look into it very deeply, we can see that if I have strategies in place that help me to understand my awareness about me, where I know and I understand certain concepts of what can I do differently to make myself understood better. Criticize yourself sometimes. It does actually help. But become aware. Is your audience actually listening to you? The person I'm speaking to, are they really listening to me? Are they getting what I'm trying to say? These are important points about you to try and understand this about you. And one way of doing it in a classroom for our students, for example, is maybe give them some self-reflective questions in a classroom. Ask kids, for example, if you have to do the exercise we spoke about just now, where we spoke about the 3 words, give them something else. If they have done something wrong, instead of ridiculing them or making them feel bad about what they've just done, ask them self-reflective questions like, this has now brought you this kind of a difficulty. You're feeling very bad about what you've just done. What could you have done differently? When you ask a student that, you're automatically making the child start to think about themselves, start to reflect about their emotions, start to reflect also about their actions, and also start to reflect about what can they do themselves to change, to become better. So using this kind of communication of self-evaluation between you and the student helps the student and yourself become more understanding of each other. And that helps us to engage with also the third concept, which is empathy. Empathy with other people. Empathy is the ability to be able to have a perspective of another person taken into consideration. And that is very important because that's where we become non-judgmental. We recognize the emotions of another person. We understand that they are feeling something, that they are being able to convey their perspectives openly to us because we empathize with them. And when we are able to be empathetic, we're able to use the self-reflective methodology so much more freely because then we respect each other. We respect that communication. And when we reflect, then we know that we're actually helping. When we reflect, we're helping ourselves, we're helping other people, and we're building that perspective, the perspectives that's needed for us to be able to collaborate together. Children normally develop empathy through observing how others show it. And that's something we all, as adults who are watching this, need to remember. Children are leeches. Sometimes what you say is not something they're going to take cognizance of, but how you act as an adult and how you react to things around you as an adult, that is what children are actually learning. They learn that first over and above your words. So they learn empathy by observing how are you empathetic as the adult. They watch it on TV. They watch it on their different social media platforms. They're watching it in their teachers. They're watching, are their teachers even empathetic? Are they learning empathy from teachers? They're watching it in their students around them. Are their students actually empathizing with each other? Concepts that you can use or phrases that you can use in a classroom with your students can be simple, that will show them that you as the teacher are actually empathetic. What are these phrases? You can say things like, I understand that this is difficult for you. I would really like to see you do better. Or you'd say things like, I realize that you had a difficult morning, but I need you to pull in your potential. You're showing them that you're understanding. I understand. You're showing them that you're with them. You're really feeling for them by saying, I realize. Or words like, I can see from your point of view. You're making them feel connected to you. It's important for us to reach out to our students for them to feel this and to understand empathy, because then they will learn to be empathetic with themselves. Another important key aspect for me with our children is they need to have this ability to manage their thought and then manage a feeling that they're having. And it's one of the most effective and efficient ways for us to support our children is when we teach them this. And this is especially so in secondary schools, because there's then the gap between the impulse control and, of course, the sensation where they're trying to seek stuff and validation. But we have to understand education is not just about acquiring knowledge and academic skills. Education is all about fostering a holistic development in our children. And emotional intelligence is actually part of that holistic development. That ability to understand, that ability to manage, that ability to express your emotions effectively, to understand other people's emotions as well. All of these are key. All of these are key aspects. And when we look at emotional intelligence in terms of academic achievements, like I said, academia is not the only part of education. Enhancing your academic performance will actually be because your emotional intelligence is high level. When students are emotionally intelligent, then they become better equipped to manage that stress. They can handle all the setbacks that they will go through even better. They persevere through their challenges with a little bit ease as opposed to the others. If you look at a child who's very well balanced in terms of understanding the emotional intelligence portion of them, they tend to exhibit a focus that's a little bit more improved. They can have attention spans that are way better than those with a low emotional intelligence. Of course, their learning processes become easier. So you know your children if you're a parent. You know your students if you're the teacher. Think about these things. Are they lacking in these aspects? It could just be that they're lacking being emotionally intelligent about themselves. Are they lacking the interpersonal skills? Do they have that enhanced collaboration between them? You know this. Do you see it with them and their siblings at home as the parent? Do you see this in your classroom between these children? Because one of the key things that we wish to do is make sure they are academically successful, but we also want to foster with our children a very positive mental health approach to life. Right now, our kids across the world are going through so much of torture, so much of torment. Our parents themselves are going through so much to try and make ends meet that they're not even having time to collaborate and connect as parent-child anymore. And the only person left in the middle becomes the teacher. The teacher themselves is also an adult in the world who's having their own difficulties. Where does that then leave this child? Mental health becomes a huge problem for everybody then across the board, not just the adults anymore. Our children are having these issues. But emotional intelligence has a very significant impact on our students' mental health and their well-being. By developing the strong sense of what we spoke about earlier, the self-awareness, by helping our children to actually learn emotional regulation and how to build resilience within themselves, then our students are going to become better equipped to manage their emotions and to cope with pressures of academic life and also social life. Because emotionally intelligent students are more likely to have a self-esteem that's much higher. They have lower levels of anxiety, lower levels of depression, and better overall mental well-being because they're able to get more in tune with themselves. So educators, you can create a supportive environment which can promote emotional intelligence. Like I said, there are very many ways that we can try and do this with our kids in classes, and let's just try because our students are important. We're always saying our students and our youth are leaders. They're not leaders of tomorrow. They're leaders of today, and they're preparing for tomorrow. And if we can build them to become most emotionally intelligent leaders now, in who they are now, then they will become the best for who they can be tomorrow. And that's what we need to do. We need to nurture that, because emotional intelligence helps our children to learn compassion. You know, when you have empathy, like I was speaking earlier, we need to build that compassion that they need to develop for each other. They need to see and understand, empathize, but have compassion for each other, not want to pick on each other's wrongs or downs. They need to have an understanding and recognize the emotions that are disabling others, but enabling themselves. And when they're able to do that, then this empathy and compassion contributes to a creation of a very supportive environment, a very inclusive learning environment. And then students start to feel valued. Students then start to feel understood. Students then even want to work together as teams. And that's what we want to do. We need to nurture that. We need to nurture our kids to have effective communication and to build healthy relationships, because the world is made up of that. The world is made up of these relationships that our children are going to have to have. And if we don't teach them how and what are fundamental relationship successful ideals, then where are they going to learn it from? They have to have success in academic and personal contexts. Where do they learn this from? It's a skill of being emotionally intelligent. Emotionally intelligent children will be equipped with a skill that will help them to communicate a thought, to communicate what they need, to communicate what they are feeling, but effectively, so that they learn to listen actively, like I spoke earlier. They will learn how to respond empathetically when somebody is speaking to them. They will learn how to resolve whatever conflicts they are feeling and enduring more amicably. And skills like these are what makes for them to have a future success that's going to be paramount, not just for them. Their future success is actually success for us, because they're going to lead us tomorrow. And so their ability to understand and manage their emotions is absolutely key. And if you're a student listening to me now, I've spoken to all your teachers and your parents. You're probably asking yourself, so why is ma'am going on about emotional intelligence? Why is it even important for me as a student? Because you as a student is important to us. And you as a student needs to be important to you. And you have to understand how important the role is that you are playing in educating yourself for the benefit of you, not for the benefit of anybody else around you. Your education is for you. And understanding yourself and educating yourself as a student about you emotionally, to become intelligent about your emotions, is crucial for you as you grow into the human world, as you grow into the adult world. Because physically and emotionally, you need to have a balance. And emotions make us human. And it's the moral responsibility of us, teachers, parents, and guardians and leaders of this world. We have to inculcate emotional intelligence in you as a student, because that's what's going to help you develop your social and your emotional skills. And by using your social emotional skill, then you as a student are going to be able to learn to understand who you are. What are you feeling? Why are you feeling what you're feeling? And then you will understand what you have to do, or what your interaction is required, what will work best for you, and you take control of you. Now, remember, I spoke about the points earlier on, the 5 concepts. That's also important for you as a student, because when we talked of self-awareness earlier, you being aware of yourself, self-awareness is where you actually learn as a student. How do you identify your own emotions? You learn as a student, what are your values? What are your thoughts? And how do your thoughts and your values actually influence your action? How does what you are feeling emotionally influence your action? And this kind of ability you have about being self-aware of these things for you as a student helps you to assess your strengths. It helps you to assess your weaknesses. And of course, then it gives you a very important growth mindset. And that is key for you to develop, not just for now as a student. That growth mindset, plus you being emotionally intelligent, is there for you to be an A+ successful human being. And that is key. Now, children are always learning how to put words to difficult emotions that they feel. When you are a child, you learn what is an emotion, what is the word attached. Or you understand if this is a difficult emotion, this is what is being learned or taught. Are we actually doing that with our children now? And are you as a child actually doing it now? So they may not understand as children what their feeling is, if you have to say upset. They may not understand what the feeling is to say angry. They might just see it as one and the same, and yet it isn't. So in such situations, this concept of self-awareness then will help your student and you as a student to identify the emotions and triggers that go behind that. So when you understand what it is to be sad, what it is to be angry, what it is to be upset, you will know that they're different concepts and each one has their own different trigger. And when you are aware of this as who you are as a student, then you will know what the triggers are and you will know then how do I deal with this when it starts to happen to me? Because then you start to think more rationally and therefore your action becomes more rational. So you're not going to have so much of a problem with your principals in your school anymore because you're taking control of you. Then you're not going to feel so anxious because when you're in tune with your emotionally intelligent self, exams are coming up, for example, you're feeling the sense of anxiety. You're feeling that I don't know what I'm going to do. But you don't understand what's really happening with you. Emotional intelligence is going to help you to understand what's happening with you. And then you will understand what steps do I need to take? Because I'm aware of me as a self. What steps do I have to take to make me better? How can I actually work through this exam stress so that I can make sure my timetable deadlines are met, that I'm able to actually fulfill what I wish to do and what I need to do with the scope I'm given or whatever I need to do in a past year exam paper so that I'm prepared for my exam for the day, as opposed to being overwhelmed purely by the emotion that you're feeling. It's only when you are aware of these things that you're able to avoid the disappointment and avoid that poor outcome that you do not want to have as a student. Because students can start to feel frustrated. They can start to feel even bored while you're learning if the subject matter is not interesting. And sometimes when you start to be like that as a student, what happens? You start to talk to yourself negatively. And that negative self-talk then leads to you actually having less self-confidence. And even though you might be somebody who has potential to become the A, because you spoke to yourself so negatively without understanding that you're actually doing it because you're not aware, it starts to take control of you. And then you're giving your power away. It's your education. It's you who has that. You need to build your confidence, not bring it down. And emotional intelligence will help you to identify and understand those emotions and what the root causes are of them. That's going to help you as a student to manage in a positive way, especially when there's something that's happening like exams and you have to learn, because that's when the concept of self-regulation comes in. You are able to regulate your schedule on your own. Do you notice how many times I'm using the word of self? Self-awareness, self-regulation, self-intelligence, self-importance. Everything is about you as a self because you are important. And you need to see how important you are for you to actually take these steps to make you a better student, to make sure you are better in what you are doing. So, are you going to take control of you? Are you going to allow others to do it for you? Are you going to just let things slide? What's going to happen? Because later on, remember, you have got to know, I need to be somewhere 5 to 10 years from now. What is your vision as a student for you at the moment? Where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself battling to try and understand people or understand yourself? Or are you willing to take some steps now to learn about you, to develop you? Because there are many benefits to you being emotionally intelligent. And I've spoken about so many already. You know, you have this very high job expectation for yourself. You want a lot to come out of life for you. All of this starts with you becoming happier. And all of that can be cultivated if you have a high emotional intelligence. And yes, I'm saying that because I know it works. People with high emotional intelligence actually understand deadlines more. They can work well within parameters that are given to them. I've seen it in the corporate world because I was there. I am there. I see it in the school environment with children. When they become more in tune with who they are, when they learn that they can accept criticism and they learn from criticism that's given to them without taking it personally, where they learn that, you know what, I don't like criticism. Children don't like to be criticized. But when you are taught that sometimes when somebody is criticizing you or something you are doing, it is not attacking you, it is helping you. And when you perceive it properly, when it actually becomes a benefit of a criticism to you, then you grow with it. And then you don't take that personally. It actually develops your emotional intelligence even more. So you use the criticism given to you to actually become a learning opportunity and a way to build on who you are better for the next time. So the next time, there's no negatives anymore. You erase it on your own. You've just done the self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-growth all in one thing by you taking the criticism, reframing it into something positive for you, and it works better. That, right now, doing it now, is something you're going to implement and use even in your workplace 10 years from now, because you will be leading a team of people. And those people are going to need you to also be able to do that. Your co-workers are going to be coming from different backgrounds, different opinions, different tasks. You have to be able to manage them and the emotions that come to the workplace too. So how good and efficient will you be if you are able to be so in tune with yourself that you're able to understand your co-workers even better? And when you're able to do that, you're then able to bring change, which is beautiful, into the workplace and into the world. And too often, workers in the world actually fear change. They fear any form of change. They want to cling to old ways and old forms of doing things because they're too scared of the new ones. But people with high emotional intelligence, they embrace change because they know change makes you grow. Change can develop you. Change can give you insight. Change can make me better at who I need to be. And they therefore look forward to ways to try to improve themselves. That should be you. That should be your mindset. That should be the mindset that you have to have about you educating yourself, because you have to become better with a growth mindset for a better life for you. Just a quick recap so far. We told you emotional intelligence is important for you to grow you. Concepts that are important is about self-awareness, yeah? You have got to practice self-awareness. Learn it, learn the concepts. Practice your self-awareness. Learn empathy. Empathize with others. Stay positive. No matter what the adversities may be, no matter what the difficulties may be, no matter how they may seem to be, you have got to be so emotionally intact that when that happens, you look at it and say, okay, this is my window of opportunity to grow through this difficulty. And I am emotionally equipped to learn how. Learn how. Learn new skills. That's what life is about. Skilling and developing and growing yourself so that no matter what happens, you're able to stay somewhat positive to get through it. Listen to feedback. What do I mean by listen to feedback? The criticism portion, yes. When I said to you just now, when somebody criticizes you, listen to what they are saying without being defensive. Sometimes their criticism is actually your benefit. It is a message for you in there to develop who you can be and be even better. Because we all know it can be challenging to receive feedback, especially if it's criticism that's negative. But instead of becoming defensive and then making excuses that somebody is giving you feedback and you don't like how you're feeling because of it, you need to rather grow with it. Grow with it and reflect on what you might do differently the next time you're in a similar situation. And then receiving this kind of feedback positively with listening to it is actually your ultimate test of your listening skill. Because even if you can't process the information immediately, if I'm giving you criticism right now and you can't really process it right now, practice just listening. Just listen to what I'm saying and then walk away, make a note. And at some point, do your self-reflection. Reflect then on the criticism that you got. And you may just find that you actually appreciate that criticism because it actually does work better to listen to what the person had said. The other thing that we're going through, and I'm trying to get to you, is that you have got to be your own motivation and understand what are your motivations. You know, students, sometimes you act very impulsively without actually realizing you're being impulsive. And a person, if you are a student with a very high emotional intelligence, you will not be just acting impulsively. You will understand first your emotion behind it. You will understand the motivation behind your action before you actually act. And that is the key, because you have to be aware of you to such a level that you are aware before you react or act on anything. This is not only something that prevents bad impulsive decisions, but it actually helps you as a person become more self-aware. Now, if you're listening to me, you're probably thinking, well, all of that is such a process before I do something. If you start to train yourself, it takes a few seconds, but it has to be trained within you for you. And training yourself for this is educating yourself. And what we said at the beginning of the session was education is the key. Educating yourself for you first is key for you to grow yourself. Who doesn't want to know better about themselves to benefit themselves for their journey of life? Every one of us do. So take the time because you're worth it. Entire books are written about how to understand who we can be. Take time. It's a good start for you to actually learn about yourself, how to perceive yourself, how to perceive others. And, we bring your past experiences into now and your beliefs into your decision-making processes now. But at some point, you have to understand what each of it means holistically for you and how you grow and develop from that point on. Because even when you become emotionally intelligent, you will find out that there are emotions within you that are also negative. And you have to keep a negative emotions check in place. So you have to know, and again, you have to be aware. So you have to create that self-awareness to such a level that you know that there is a development of a negative emotion inside me. My anger could be a negative emotion for me because I don't really know how to train myself. My frustrations become negatively impacting on me. You need to understand these things about you, and only you can understand you best. No one knows you as an individual better than you know yourself. So if you want to understand your emotions, list them out for yourself. If you understand your triggers, list the triggers out for yourself, because no one else is the same. Every one of us has different triggers, different points, different everything. You have to understand you best. And sometimes to understand you need to network. Networking is key. That's why our students love to get engaged, talk to each other, collaborate, because when they network, they talk to each other. And the more they talk to each other and encounter other people, they're able to practice empathy. They're able to build on those relationships. And they find that networking events and schools having bulletin boards up where they put up their notices, or even online networking sites such as LinkedIn, etc. Some schools have alumni organizations where they have their kids link up. These are ways for them to actually network, to know each other, to see how each one is developing and growing, and to motivate that same growth in each other so they become better. This is what is key for us to learn, for us to decide. Because when I have to look at today's topic, like I said, today we spoke about mindset for education with emotional intelligence. We spoke a lot about this emotional intelligence today. We spoke mostly about how it is so key for you to be intelligent about your emotions, to be educated about your emotions, to be educated about you and your triggers, and become aware of who you are and what is happening with you, in order for you to create the mindset that helps you to grow. Because that growth mindset is all that it's going to take for you to become a better individual. So today's topic is all in one. 3 huge concepts: mindset, education, emotional intelligence. You need, as a student, to take control of you now, because you have to lead later. And when later comes, if you are prepared enough now, later becomes easier. And then to lead us later is beautiful, because you have taken the time to educate yourself. So your mindset as a student right now, your mindset has to be focused on education and educating yourself so much that you become emotionally intelligent about you to such an extent that nothing and no one stops you from becoming the best version of you. Nothing and no one stops you from reaching your fullest potential. no matter what that may be. Remember, right now in the world, there's a lot of difficulties happening, but how we perceive it and how we see it, how we feel about it, what emotions that triggers within us, we need to be aware of, because that determines how we react to what we are feeling. We react to how we are seeing this. So if I am not emotionally intelligent enough to know what's triggering me, how it's triggering me, if I don't educate myself enough to know that I shouldn't be doing certain things because it's not going to be perceived properly and it's wrong, then I'm going to not have the correct mindset to be a better person and a human being, to be empathetic and grow humanitarian-wise across the world. Therefore, again, I leave you with the topic of today: mindset for education with emotional intelligence. You, whether you're a student or whether you're an adult right now, you have to develop your mindset to be so in tune with becoming educated, and educated so much that your emotional intelligence becomes your key to becoming the betterment of you and, of course, the betterment of your journey. Thank you so much again to IIU. Thank you, Sir Piyush Pandit, and of course, my beautiful sister Maha, for this lovely opportunity. I really appreciate it. I greet you all again in the universal greeting of peace with blessings. Assalamu alaikum.